And gentlemen, good morning. Just turn to your neighbor and nod at them a nice good morning, please, because we're not touching this morning still. Welcome to CMU's Industry Conference 2023 under the theme Managing Risks in the Maritime Industry through the application of engineering solutions. Before we start the conference component of what we're about to do, we have some wonderful protocol type activity. I invite you to observe the posting of the colors, the flags from our stakeholder nations. When our officer cadets are in place after the posting of flags, we will invite you to stand for the playing of Jamaica's national anthem. At this time, the CMU cadets will post the colors.
Flag party. By the front. Slow. March. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right. Left! Flag party! Halt! Up! Post! Post! Cut! Flag party will retire. Done.
Please stand for the playing of Jamaica's national anthem. Please be seated. Thank you. I invite to the microphone to offer an invocation on this morning's proceedings our Deputy Registrar, Director of Student Affairs, Mrs. Tisha Walker-Brown.
By the front. Slow. March. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Right. Left. Break into quick time. Quick march. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. Left, right, left, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, flag party, halt. Flag party will advance, right, down. Flag party, stand out, ease, start, easy.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us bow our heads for prayer. Eternal Father, our sovereign Lord, we are thankful, Lord, for the great benefits that you have given to us. Lord, each day we see and experience these. Father, through your great omnipotence and omnipresence, we pray, Lord, that the engagements for these 2 days over this conference, Father, we ask that they be invigorating and stimulating. We pray also, Father, that the CMU leadership, its staff and students will reap great rewards. And Father, we pray that our partners and stakeholders that are gathered with us today and over tomorrow, that, Lord, that they be encouraged, Lord Jesus, to give to this great work, that they will continue, Lord, to pour in. Lord, we place all in your care, and we say, take full and complete control. In Jesus' name, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, all online, watching from the region and in-house, I invite you, this is not normal for an academic conference, but I do invite you to put your hands together as we welcome to the podium CMU's President, Professor Andrew Spencer.
Thank you, Conference Chair, Dr. Yvette Smith-Johnson, and acknowledging her co-chair, Professor Ibrahim Ajaguna. I want to give a very warm welcome to our very special guests. We are lucky today to have some very distinguished ministers in our midst. So firstly, I'd like to welcome the Honourable Fayval Williams, Minister of Education and the Youth. The Honourable Daryl Vaz, Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport. Mrs. Corah and Robertson Sylvester, CEO of Seaboard Jamaica and a member of the CMU Council. I'd also want to recognize Rear Admiral Peter Brady, who is also a member of Council and the Director General of the Maritime Authority of Jamaica. Your Excellencies, the many ambassadors who are with us today, representing France, Colombia, Nigeria. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Parris Ayee, Jr., Vice President of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. Professor Temi Olagud Norisa, Vice Chancellor of Agago University of Science and Technology, Nigeria. Our very good friend and partner, Professor Paloma Mohamed Martin, Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana. Senior leadership of the CMU, all participants, guests, students, a warm welcome to the CMU's third staging of its industry conference. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to rewind the clock with me for a bit. Closer to this time last year, when I had just donned my captain hat, and yes, it's still there, imagine it is there, ready to set sail as the president of this very noble university, the Caribbean Maritime University. Just a matter of weeks having joined this university, where the CMU was ready to weigh its anchor on the then second staging of the industry conference. Now here we are, here I am a year later, oozing with immense pride and a great pleasure to welcome you to the third staging of our phenomenal conference, where we bring together distinguished guests, business leaders, academics, students, colleagues, and all other innovators of the maritime industry to this very auspicious occasion. And while I welcome you, I want to just do a little bit of context setting as we go through these 2 days. So from a regional point of view, we are keen on emphasizing the topic for our conference, the theme, managing risks in the maritime industry through the application of engineering solutions. And anyone in this room who doesn't know that the CMU has the very best in engineering technology and solutions, then today you will learn of that excellence. I want you, ladies and gentlemen, to give a round of applause to the stellar work that comes out of the CMU engineering space. And I want to make this point because as the government of Jamaica drives a STEAM priority for our nation, the CMU must be at the epicenter of driving that agenda. And for those who don't know about our Festo Center, the only one in this hemisphere that provides excellent technology, pneumatics, hydraulics, Industry 4.0, full automation, mechatronics, robotics, electrics, and we could go on and on. But I have a very limited time here. And so the theme invites us, ladies and gentlemen, in an inclusively relevant yet timely discussion that will position us to a safer, more sustainable and resilient maritime industry. And as a region, we are strategically located. Our geographic location is exceptional for us to be able to tap into some inherent capabilities, to forge a connection with nations and economies and making our industry a vital organ within our region that drives trade, tourism, and economic growth. And so because of this, it's imperative that we initiate these conversations. It is imperative that we engage our partners not only for what we consider to be esoteric discussions that rest on a shelf, or to engage in tautological conversations that yield nothing, but to engage in applied discussions that will lead to solutions for our region. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what the CMU represents to Jamaica and the Caribbean. We are firstly a maritime institution, and we are unapologetic about that. That is what we own. We are secondly a university, and therefore we bring the sophistication of a university to every conversation. And we're thirdly, and equally importantly, a Caribbean university here to serve the region and its peoples. And so our commitment will never be lost, ladies and gentlemen. We have engaged in research through our Research Implementation Committee. We have engaged in advocacy through our Port Royal Lecture Series, which has attracted significant attention and brought together the most prominent speakers from governments around the world. And today, we engage in an industry exchange that will see every single individual who is here today and who is joining us in the virtual space leaving with very tangible ways where we can affect change, revolutionize, and transform the maritime space in Jamaica, the Caribbean, and beyond. So as I close, I want to thank all the conference organizers. I want to thank everyone who has demonstrated an interest in being here. I want to thank Team CMU, those of you who make it happen every day. And I want to especially thank our students who are the products in making, the ambassadors in making, who will then carry this message of excellence, who will carry this message of illuminating a space that doesn't quite understand what we do. But in essence, our impact will speak for who we are. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you. I welcome you. I invite you to delve into a feast of intellectual stimulation and industry practical applications. And we look forward to engaging you throughout these 2 days. And at the end of it, just like the people say in church, we'll say it was good for us to be here. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, all our sports teams at the Caribbean Maritime University, all the teams are called what? CMU. They're called Spartans. And so you can hashtag Spartans for me when you do. I know you're on your phones. Yeah, so when you get on Instagram, go Spartans, Industry Conference 2023, CMU. Those are the hashtags. And if something here catches you, don't be afraid of putting it on LinkedIn. We are live on every platform. Ladies and gentlemen, if there ever was a person who epitomizes shipping business in Jamaica, and I have to be very careful, but I can get away with this, it's the person I'm going to call to the podium to bring greetings on behalf of our council chair, Professor Gordon Shirley, who could not be here. I invite to the podium council member, the CEO of Seaboard Jamaica, and our, yes, first female and only female president of the Shipping Association, Caribbean Shipping Association, Mrs. Corah and Robertson Sylvester.
Good morning. It's great to be here on World Maritime Day. This is a good sign that the CMU has decided to host our conference to signify the importance of what the maritime community means to Jamaica and also the wider Caribbean. The Honourable Fayval Williams, Minister of Education and Youth, the Honourable Daryl Vaz, Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport. Professor Andrew Spencer, President of the Caribbean Maritime University, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all our guests and students, and to all you Spartans out there online. It is my pleasure, on behalf of the Council of the Caribbean Maritime University, CMU, to welcome you to the 2023 Industry Conference. This year's conference is especially important to the CMU, given its theme, Managing Risks in the Maritime Industry through the Application of Engineering Solutions. Yes, the CMU is a maritime school, but it's also an engineering school. The word application is key. The CMU is all about the application of knowledge, and knowledge application is important for those of us in industry. Let me give you one practical example by sharing the story of the dynamic positioning DP system for offshore vessels. The DP system is designed to maintain a vessel's position and heading automatically using various sensors, thrusters, and propellers. One day, a supply vessel was transferring critical equipment to an offshore rig during harsh weather and conditions. Without the DP system, this operation would have been near impossible and very dangerous due to the strong currents and high waves. Thanks to the advanced engineering of the DP system, the supply vessel managed to hold its position accurately and safely next to the oil rig. This shows us how engineering solutions significantly improve safety and efficiency in challenging maritime operations. This is just one example of how, by addressing engineering challenges and discussing opportunities in the maritime sector, we can find innovative solutions that lead to a thriving, sustainable, and safe environment for all stakeholders. Engineering also plays a pivotal role in the maritime sector, particularly in risk management. It allows us to develop advanced infrastructure systems and processes that address potential issues. Innovation drives efficiency, and forums like this allows us to collaborate to find solutions to the challenges that affect the sector. That is why I'm especially pleased to be here, because I understand the value of collaboration. It is that spirit of collaboration which allowed for the development of the port community system, known to all as the PCS. The PCS system is facilitated by the Port Authority of Jamaica in partnership with Jamaica's Customs Agency, along with the support of the Shipping Association of Jamaica. The Shipping Association of Jamaica led the way from as early as 1997 in investigating the feasibility of the port community system for Jamaica. The PCS is a single, neutral, and open electronic platform which enables the secure exchange of information between public and private stakeholders in the port community. It acts as a single window that manages all trade, logistics, and business processes to improve the competitiveness of the island's ports. This technology solution has reduced the need for persons to congregate at the ports, limiting the need for interaction and the need to supply the same data multiple times over and over. The PCS is just one example of how, by working together, we can novel ways of integrating technology in the maritime sector and use those advancements to grow the sector. In much the same way, by strengthening our engineering practices, we can make Jamaica maritime sector more resilient and competitive internationally. Once again, thank you all for being here, and let's make this conference a grand success. Spartans out there, I hope you're watching, because this is for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Corah. Ladies and gentlemen, today, World Maritime Day, is being celebrated under the theme, Marpole at 50 and Admiral is in the house. So I'm careful. The commitment continues. It has been 50 years since that piece of legislation, global legislation, pervasive legislation, that has led to safer seas. And Prof. Spencer, it has been just about 40 years, if I round up on the right side of 10, that CMU has been established. About 40 years since the then Minister of Transport, Colonel Charles, used that pickaxe that he gave you to break grounds at the campus at Palisados. Today, we declare that the Caribbean Maritime University is the epitome of an example of state-mandated curriculum, because we were established by an act of parliament because government saw the need for a seaman school. I now invite the current Minister of Energy, Science, this is the correct order, Science, Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport, Super Ministry, Honourable Minister Daryl Vaz, MP, to come to the podium and bring greetings. Minister Vaz.
Good morning, everyone. Madam Chairperson, colleague Minister Fayval Williams, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Again, a pleasant good morning. In May this year, when the Most Honourable Prime Minister decided to place portfolio responsibilities for transport together with science, energy, and telecommunications, many were surprised. But perhaps our Prime Minister recognized the need for the use of technology to improve our transportation systems. The importance of transportation in our daily lives can never be understated, and as an island state, maritime transport is crucial for Jamaica's livelihood and development. On a global scale, 90% of trade takes place by sea. In Jamaica's case, this underscores that the maritime trade is vitally important and drives this economy to a great extent. In agriculture, maritime transportation is necessary to take produce from the farm to the table, and in tourism, Jamaica is a preferred destination for cruise ships. Our rolling stock of motor vehicles and commodities, including most of the energy which we use, is transported by sea, such as the large imports of LNG, a cleaner form of fossil fuel. Indeed, the maritime sector continues to grow year by year, with larger ships conveying bigger volumes and taking more visitors while employing more local crew at sea. To this end, I recognize the responsibilities of the Maritime Authority of Jamaica, the MAJ, in regulating the shipping industry to keep it safe, secure, and environmentally sound, including strict observance of the prevention of emissions into the atmosphere by ships, which is extremely relevant today as we celebrate World Maritime Day 2023 in support of the International Maritime Organization, the IMO theme, MARPOL at 50, our commitment goes on. I'm also proud of the work undertaken by the MAJ in relation to the oversight responsibility for the Caribbean Maritime University. The Seafarer Maritime Education and Training Programs, along with its overall mandate to develop the maritime industry in Jamaica. The developmental and regulatory responsibilities of the MAJ allow for the creation of opportunities in the shipping industry, including ship registration, which provides the opportunity for employment of Jamaica seafarers on board our flagships globally. CMU cadets and other graduates with certificates of competency issued by the MAJ, which are internationally recognized. Entering reciprocal arrangements under the STCW Convention has also allowed a number of CMU seafarers to work on foreign flagged vessels, and with most recent MOU signed between Canada and Jamaica, we now have reciprocal arrangements with 23 countries, including major ship-owning states such as Norway, the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Belgium, Cyprus, Kenya, some of which we trade with Jamaica. The promotion of bunkering in Jamaica, which has been regulated by the MAJ and now expands to bunkering in LNG as an interim fuel for vessels, the business of ship repair and dry docking will create spin-off jobs for local engineers, fitters, divers, surveyors, artisans, etc. So, ladies and gentlemen, the maritime industry is ever-changing, and the need for innovation cannot be overstated. Incidentally, the future of shipping, which is a topical at the IMO's Maritime Safety Committee meetings, involves maritime autonomous surface ship, the increase in technology, which introduces the use of artificial intelligence, AI, and virtual reality in seafarer training and shipboard operations will change the global dynamics of the maritime industry as we knew it. Through it all, the risk management is essential to prevent the operational accidents, incidents, and chaos in a modern transportation system, especially in the maritime sector. Proper risk management requires policymakers looking at the big picture to determine where we intend to take Jamaica's transport sector and what the required innovations that may help the process are. At the operational level, all stakeholders within the sector are required to consider all that can possibly go wrong and need to take mitigating actions to prevent such occurrences. In maritime transportation activities, risks are a constant factor at all stages, from the beginning of a voyage to final delivery. However, the constant factor can be controlled by understanding the risks and using the right tools and strategies to mitigate them. It is necessary to implement a transportation risk management methodology which would involve the identification, analysis, and evaluation of common risks in different stages of the process to obtain a more comprehensive vision to evaluate each risk individually and design the strategies to deal with them. Innovations such as satellite imagery and GPS tracking will also allow future navigators and marine engineers to sail ships remotely while accurately monitoring their locations, thus avoiding incidents such as collision. I challenge the innovators here to find solutions to the transportation of electric cars by ship. I'm told that the maritime industry has expressed several explosions of lithium batteries using these cars. The world needs an engineering solution, and why not a Jamaican-driven solution? Engineering solutions are reducing risk in port through the use of technologies such as the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, big data, blockchain, automation, and robotics. These technologies provide benefits in many different forms. So therefore, let us take this opportunity to congratulate the CMU for taking this initiative to organize this industry conference, and I'm pleased with the topic selected, managing risk in maritime industry through the application of engineering solutions. In closing, I urge the CMU and the MAJ to forge collaborations with the Scientific Research Council, local universities, engineers, and software developers to combine their skills and creativity to contribute towards this global shift that is certainly coming, and as a matter of fact, is certainly closer than many of us believe. I encourage you all to communicate, network, collaborate, and create solutions. We can get the unemployment rate even lower than the 4.5% with good and well-paid jobs. So again, I wish for you all a very successful conference, and I'm sure that you will leave here with more solutions for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. And as Minister Vaz spoke about innovation in transport, somebody got very innovative with parking. So, red Toyota RAV4, they didn't give me the year, but model and make. Red Toyota RAV4, 1036HL, you've been asked to relocate from where you're currently parked, or you may have to go to the Transport Authority before Minister leaves here and retrieve the vehicle. So red Toyota RAV4, 1036HL, please relocate your vehicle. I am about to introduce our second minister, and before I do so, I want you to note that in-house today with us, physically, not virtually, is another premier maritime education and training institution represented by my wonderful colleague, Ms. Willamay Johnson. And we had the privilege, CMU, Prof, of going to LJM Maritime Academy in the beautiful Bahamas in 2017 for their own conference. So I'm going to invite Willamay and her colleague and the cadets from LJM Maritime Academy to stand and be recognized. Thank you so much. And I hear that you are here until the weekend. The Maritime Authority is close by. Admiral will show you where. And we have a wonderful hip strip along there as you go back to the ROK. Thank you for coming. It is our pleasure to host you. And it is, I feel, a good spot to introduce LJM, at least to acknowledge them, because our ministry, under whom we fall, manages the gamut of educational institutions in Jamaica. And this morning, our gracious minister is here to bring greetings. She's the Minister of Education, Youth and Information, the Honourable Fayval Williams, MP. Minister Williams.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Wonderful. Let me begin by acknowledging the Honourable Daryl Vaz, Minister of Science, Energy, Telecommunications, and Transport. Professor Andrew Spencer, President. Let me acknowledge as well His Excellencies who are here from various countries. And in absentia, Professor Gordon Shirley, President of the Port Authority of Jamaica and Chairman of the CMU Council. Let me acknowledge as well all the members of the Council, including on the platform, Mrs. Corah and Robertson Sylvester, a CEO in her own right, and President of the Shipping Association. Let me acknowledge as well in the audience, Dr. Parris Lyew Ayee, Jr., Vice President, Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, Dr. Yvette Smith-Johnson and Professor Ibrahim Ajaguna, conference co-chairs, other specially invited guests, panelists, and researchers. Good day, good morning again. I am delighted to be here this morning to bring you greetings at this CMU Industry Conference, which is set to engage you in forward thinking and planning for the future of this industry. As you know, this higher education institution specializing in maritime education, and this morning I heard engineering, was established 43 years ago out of an agreement between the governments of Jamaica and Norway to explore the feasibility of a merchant marine training school. Since then, since that time, the Caribbean Maritime University has grown into the largest specialized maritime training institution in the region, which is helping us prepare for a prosperous tomorrow. And I think that deserves an applause that they have grown so much over the last 43 years. I'm sure I'm going to tell you a lot of things that you already know about CMU, but they're worth repeating. And I know we have an audience in the virtual space as well. We have many young people in Jamaica who need to know about CMU. And so, to those of you who are here, if you know these things, you can nod. To all other persons, I am putting out this information for your benefit. The CMU boasts the most cutting-edge engineering degrees and the only of its kind in the Caribbean in mechatronics, as you heard from the president just a short while ago, as well as industrial automation, to name a few. These premium engineering programs, along with degrees in digital forensics, as well as naval architecture and marine surveying, fit squarely and firmly within the government's push for greater focus on STEM schools, STEM or STEAM schools in Jamaica. This new strategic thrust has also strengthened the capacity of the university to meet the needs of industry through solution-driven applied research of the highest caliber. This is supported by the best laboratories in partnership with German engineering giant Festo. The CMU boasts the only Festo authorized training center in the Western Hemisphere, with 7 fully equipped labs to include robotics and electrical vehicle training, as well as research solutions. And for all those of you who are attending CMU, you must feel immensely proud to be part of such an institution. And if you do, I'd expect to hear an applause as well. This is not by accident, but a consequence of deliberate action. Indeed, some important governance, structural, and strategic changes have been ongoing at the CMU over the last 3 years in the wake of a much publicized Auditor General's report. Under the leadership of Council Chairman Professor Gordon Shirley and President Professor Andrew Spencer, both of whom have extensive experience in academia, government, and the private sector, the university has crafted a 5-year strategic plan focused on stability, growth, and innovation, which has already begun to position it in the minds of young, bright students as a premier choice in higher education. A new organizational structure has been developed to bring the university in line with local and international best practice. This new strategic push has the full support of the Ministry of Education and Youth, and of course the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. As a matter of fact, as of the supplementary budget that was presented in Parliament last Tuesday by the Honourable Minister Clark, $395 million have been added to the recurrent expenditure of CMU in recognition of the expansion plans of that institution. So the university has developed a new 5-year stability, growth, and innovation strategy to reposition the CMU as a force, not just locally, but regionally and globally. In that vein, using that strategy, the growth strategy, the innovation strategy, the CMU has formed important partnerships with local, regional, and international partners, including Carnival Cruise Lines, right, President? The University of Guyana, and key stakeholders in Antigua and Barbuda and Belize. And I know we have representatives from those countries. Could you please raise your hands to be recognized? Yes, we have, yes. Industry partnerships are also being forged with the likes of Lasco Distributors, the Appliance Traders Limited, Flash Motors, Seprod, and Sandals Resorts International, to name a few. The Caribbean Maritime University, with its strengthened internal systems and outward-looking global approach, has established itself as the leading merchant shipping maritime university in Latin America and the Caribbean. Yes. This has been done through a complete systems overhaul that will make this institution, the CMU, the Caribbean Maritime Institution, the envy of not only the Caribbean, but the world. And so it has been a delight for me to talk about what CMU has been doing, and to say to all of you here as conference participants today, I wish for you to have a productive and engaging discussion over the next 2 days as you converge to discuss and plan solutions, observing the theme, managing risks in the maritime industry through the application of engineering solutions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And our final greeting for this section is coming up. We have in our midst today a distinguished guest, an honorable guest, and a partner. We have the Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Professor Paloma Mohamed, and I invite her to the podium to bring greetings.
Honorable Ministers, Honorable Deputy Chair of the Council, I hope I got that correct. And I'm very, very happy to see that you were the first and only woman like me to be doing something. And of course, President of CMU, distinguished guests, ambassadors, others, please permit me to stand on the protocols already established. I came to Jamaica a few days ago for another conference, from which I'm absconding this morning. But I felt that, first of all, I could not miss the opportunity of being here for several reasons. First, I crashed a virtual boat of the CMU a couple of months ago when I was visiting, and so I think I owe them. And secondly, and most importantly though, up to January this year, before the very dynamic, forward-thinking, innovative, and very committed President Spencer came to Guyana and happened to come to my office by accident. He should have met my deputy, but I believe that God was in the midst of it, because the university has 154 different MOUs with people all over the world. And I say this without any fear of successful contradiction. We have not met one president who is so much in synergy with what the university is thinking, what the country needs, and he delivers. To the point of almost missing this morning's event because he was so committed to getting me safely from one place to the next, because I don't know Jamaica, and I want to thank him for that. But as you would all know, the University of Guyana is a state university, and Guyana is in the news nowadays for its ultra deep production, water production of oil and soon to be gas. We have a good maritime sector, but it is not prepared in any way, shape, or form for what we are doing now and what we will need to do in the future. And so the partnership with CMU is so important to Guyana. I cannot overemphasize it. And so that's the real reason why I had to be here this morning. Also, work on land, work on water, and work for safe communities and industries are part of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN that's been set. And while Guyana is very involved and will be for a long time in production of oil and gas, and our interest is very much there, if you were reading the papers, you'll see that sustainable tourism and river economies are also very high on our agenda as a country. And we have over 365 rivers in our country, very huge ones and small ones. And so the transport side of this, the tourism side of this, and also the fact that CMU has done what many other Caribbean universities would not do, which is look to the south and not to the north. This must be applauded because Guyana is in South America as well as in the Caribbean. And so that's a very strategic move on the part of your president, again, to try to get there and open up that market. And finally, I'd like to say that we are very gratified that there are several Guyanese, who must be Guyanese Jamaican now, working on the faculty of the CMU. One of them is my dear friend from high school, Mr. Evan Hubbard, and we're very, very delighted. And of course, Ian Chin, and the other one, Ethan Chin, also Guyanese by birth, but I'm sure Jamaican now by everything else. And we're cool with that. We're okay with that. So I'd like to acknowledge that contribution. But the very, very significant point that was raised this morning by the Honorable Minister of Education is that just 2 days ago, our Ministry of Labor put out a note that the country needs over 270 engineers. The University of Guyana is producing about 160 a year. And so we really need to be working with countries and institutions that could help us to produce these numbers that we need. So this is a very, 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 very significant aspect of the relationship which we'd like to see develop. And there's much more. But I just wanted to bring greetings, to thank you for inviting me, to thank you for your partnership. We're really looking forward to this. And everything that he says, because I came and saw it myself, when he showed me his marketing, I thought, this is a very slick marketing person. But we came ourselves in February, and every single thing they said they had, and much more. And so this is a wonderful place. We look forward to working with them, and we believe that they will bring great, great, great value to the Caribbean. Because before he walked into my office, I did not know that such a wonderful place existed. So God bless you in your 40 years. God bless the conference. And I thank you. Happy World Maritime Day.
Yes, just for a minute. Thank you, Prof. And as we close this segment, I could have a quiz, but I don't have time for it, so I have to tell you. 40 years since the Seaman School started in Jamaica. It started as the Jamaica Maritime Training Institute, and Ms. Keisha Walker would tell me that it transitioned to the Jamaica Maritime Institute. And then we became the Caribbean Maritime Institute with a change in our mandate. But 6 years ago, on September 28th, what day is today? We could actually sing happy birthday to you. We won't do that. On September 28th, we were chartered in 2017 as the Caribbean Maritime University. And yes, that's breaking new horizons. And we have been sailing through interesting seas, but we're settling into fair winds and following seas. And today we want to give Spartan here, Cadet Boy Blue, to our guests on stage. So Professor Spencer, I know you run every morning. So I want to invite you back to hand out these tokens to our guests as they leave the stage. And I want you to put your hands together for the greetings that have been brought this morning and the regard behind same. Thank you, President Spencer. You may. Yes. And we are transitioning to our guest speaker as we do introductions. Yes, sir. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning I would like to read this profile in your hearing. Dr. Parris Lyew Ayee Jr. is the managing partner of Project Alpha, a boutique data analytic consultancy firm, as well as the Chief Strategy Officer for the Leap Company Limited, an environmental and social development firm. He is also the director of he was the director of Mona Geoinformatics for 17 and a half years. When you see him, you'll wonder, but 17 and a half years, where he developed the region's first GPS navigation system known as JamNav, as well as led advanced applied research and development in geospatial technology applications in crime, road safety, public health, natural hazards, and business development. He also led that organization to the Gleaner Honor Award for Science and Technology in 2018. He served as the Chief Scientific Officer for Portland Holdings Limited, a Canadian asset management company. He is currently Vice President at the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica with responsibility for energy, environment, climate change portfolio. He is also the former head of the Department of Geography and Geology at the University of the West Indies. He sits on over a dozen boards and committees, including serving as the chairman of the Scientific Research Council and the International Center for Environmental and Nuclear Sciences, as well as the Executive Committee of the National Commission on Science and Technology. He sits on the main board of Grace Kennedy Limited, including its corporate governance and audit committees, as well as Grace Foods and Services Limited subsidiary company, and High-Low Supermarkets, Jamaica's second largest retail food chain. He's also the chairman of Dairy Industries Limited Jamaica. He's a council member of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica and a member of the Violence Prevention Alliance. I think it would have been easier for me to read what he's not a part of. He previously served on the boards of the National Housing Trust and as chairman of the National Works Agency and the Water Resources Authority, as well as served on the boards of JN General Insurance Company and the Jamaica Automobile Association. His interests, as you've heard, span the fields of science, technology, and business, seeking synergies between all three areas. His active research includes natural hazards analyses, crime and security system modeling, road safety analyses, health systems mapping, transport systems modeling, something I can't pronounce, karst geomorphology, terrain signature diagnoses, Martian rock breakdown analyses, geospatial planning for businesses, data analysis, GPS systems, virtual reality mapping. All right, Peter, you're out of business as head of Faculty of Engineering and Applied Technology, modeling and mapping. Significant projects that he has been involved in or that he's currently working on includes the PSOJ COVID Relief Fund, and Project STAR, looking at community transformation through direct engagement in depressed areas, road safety, driving the data-driven approach to safety engineering, enforcement, surveillance, including co-authoring a cost of care study and building a near real-time online crash map, and 3 major projects involving the Kingston Harbor as lead or co-lead researcher. He's looked at things for the Grace Kennedy Foundation's Clean Harbor Project, German-funded Caribbean Biodiversity Fund Ecosystem-Based Adaptation Project, Dutch non-profit Ocean Cleanup Interceptor Project. He has also served or currently serves as GIS expert on several multilaterally funded projects on climate change, crime, to include the technical assessment team as the GIS expert for the Citizen Security Program for the Ministry of National Security. It doesn't surprise us then that he's the author or co-author of over 50 peer-reviewed books, papers, journal articles, book chapters, magazines, you get the picture. He is a graduate of Stella Maris Prep, and we see the Stella in him, and of the school that declares Auntie Mary Dumpling good. You don't know that one. St. George's College. He's a former Jamaica Exhibition and United Kingdom Commonwealth Scholar, receiving a first-class honors BSc in Earth Sciences from UA and the Doctor of Philosophy in Geography from the University of Oxford, which he completed in 2.5 years at the age of 23. He's the recipient of the 2004, yes. He's the recipient of the 2004 Prime Minister's Youth Award for Excellence in Academia and the 2005 Youth Musgrave Medal and the 2006 Governor General's Youth Award for Excellence, the EduVision 2009 Award for Excellence in Innovation, and in 2012, he was named one of Jamaica's top business leaders under the age of 50 and probably 30 by the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica. He was awarded the 2014 Eisenhower Fellowship to join a select group of international professionals to meet with different organizations in the United States to examine best practices and develop international relationships. And by 2017, he was selected by the Overseas Chinese Affairs Office of the State Council of the People's Republic of China to visit China as an eminent overseas Chinese. Excitement. Joining other Chinese leaders from around the world in Beijing to look at Chinese foreign policy and cultures. He is currently a part of the US State Department's AI Connect International Cooperation Program. Ladies and gentlemen, we feel that we have fielded the best speaker for Academic Conference, Industry Conference 2023. I invite to the podium Dr. Parris Lyew, Ayee Jr.
Good morning, everyone. After that introduction, I feel all kind of pressure right now, but thank you very much for having me here. Ministers, Minister Williams and my minister, Minister Vaz, good to see you, Professor Spencer. Professor Mohamed, we met a few years ago online at a Caribbean Academy of Sciences event, and the commitment of the University of Guyana then, as now, and your leadership has been consistent, and I'm very welcome. And I see are you Professor Potopsingh yet? I mean, you're always Professor Potopsingh to me. Hi, Dr. Dean, good to see you again. I mean, so many colleagues and friends. I know Admiral Brady is always at my favorite restaurants. I always see you every now and then, but I'm good to see. It's good to see so many familiar and friendly faces. Now, I'm very intimidated to be with all these uniformed geniuses and leaders here, speaking about Maritime. So what I tried to do was to, where's my, oh, it's not up on the, okay. So you guys can't see my presentation? Oh, there you go. I tried to do a geo perspective. That way I hedge my bets and play it safe. Because at least I'll stay in your domain where you're an expert on, and I can bring the geo perspective, which is what I'm more familiar and comfortable with, infused with the element of risk. So I've done a lot of work, as that long epistle was saying about my career in research and so on. The geo perspective has always been interesting, whether it's geopolitical, geographic, geologic, all of those things. There's a geo perspective that's very important. Geotechnology, Minister Vaz mentioned about satellite systems and so on. Again, you're going to see how everything comes together. I also do want to recognize the many ambassadors and members of the diplomatic corps present. Your presence here is also very intimidating for me. But anyway, we're going to go around the world. We're going to see many different what am I doing wrong? Imagine this, Minister Vaz, I don't know how to run technology. There we go. So obviously, when we're talking about risks, general risks and so on, possibility of something bad happening, but we do want to look at that interplay of not just risks in abstract. We need to look at interplay of the assets, the things that could go wrong, the circumstances that could lead to something going wrong, the design flaws or the vulnerabilities in that system. And we do need a threat to act upon a vulnerable asset. And all those three working in concert would give you your particular risk. Now that'll help you figure out how do you mitigate and control that risk. And whether that risk be a personal risk or financial risk, all of this risk environment is something that is part of your main theme for this conference. And obviously we're going to focus on the engineering solutions for this. Could someone just, next slide for me, please? Yeah, thank you. So within your current environment, we do see maritime risks increasing. We do see, and Minister Vaz mentioned earlier about the volume and value of international shipping. And you guys know this obviously very well. But these things are very, very sensitive to disruptions, whether they're going to be geopolitical conflicts or disputes. These things can have significant impacts on oil and gas prices, grain prices, international commodities, and so on. We do see where environmental issues begin to have an impact on global supply chains and so on. But we do know that engineering solutions can fix all of them. Certain geopolitical conflicts require diplomatic solutions and so on. But we do know that engineering has a very important role in all spaces, including geopolitical. But then when we see what's happening in the South China Sea, even a couple of days ago, we saw the Philippines, the Coast Guard removing some Chinese stuff in their territorial waters. We do have piracy on the Horn of Africa. We see that the US Secretary of Defense was in Djibouti over the weekend. Again, they have a significant fleet presence in Djibouti. We obviously know what's going on with the Russia-Ukraine conflict and what's happening in Crimea. You saw last week in Sevastopol what's happening there as well. Every few months, Iran kicks off something in the Strait of Hormuz with oil tanker shipping, and obviously the concentration of oil and gas that's moving from Kuwait, Iraq, all of those guys coming through that narrow strait, the mouth of the Persian Gulf. We do see the migrant crisis in the Mediterranean, and all the news hype about some rich people dying going to the Titanic when hundreds of people are dying in the Mediterranean every week. Those things are very, very concerning going on out there right now. We do see the impact of climate change and the Northwest Passage, the fabled Northwest Passage in 1845. John Franklin and his two ships went out there, never came back. But again, with the global warming, that passage is going to open up, and that's going to bring itself opportunities as well as significant feedback problems when oil and gas opportunities open up in the northern Atlantic, northern Pacific, and so on. But and of course we know what's happening in the Panama Canal with the drought and Lake Gatun, and these things are happening. So these are all happening at the same time. Different types of risks, different types of responses, but they're all going to have some kind of effect, significant effect on the maritime industry, and so on. Sorry. And there are many different systems that exist to show real-time information of risks and vulnerabilities, whether they're going to be at sea, at ports, in international waters, all of those things. So different services exist to provide a real-time tracking of what's happening globally. And then, again, you're going to see this sprinkle through the presentation. So this is some of my own database, just putting in information using the GIS and Earth observation systems. Global shipping lanes, we can see those corridors that have particular intensities of maritime shipping traffic. And then within certain regions, you can see in Southeast Asia on the left and into the Indian Ocean, you can see the Straits of Malacca and that main choke point moving between East Asia and South Asia and the rest of the world. We do see the shipping concentration in the Suez Canal, in the Mediterranean, in the English Channel, North Sea, in Arabian Gulf and so on. You can see all those concentrations of where activity is happening. And within our own space, you can see again, not just that choke point of the Panama Canal, but you can also see Jamaica's position in the region where stuff are going towards Houston or Galveston, and then stuff going towards Savannah and South Florida. They're gonna fork off just south of Jamaica and so on, as well as opportunities for transshipment to the Eastern Caribbean and wherever else they want to go. You can see where we are quite well positioned. But again, we do look at choke points. Choke points are inherently geographic, right? So we're going to see that places based on the luck of geography, you're placed in a beautiful location to facilitate transshipment, to facilitate war throughout history. Look at Byzantium and Istanbul right now. That right there in the Strait of Bosporus. You have so much conflict going on right now because you're at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. We do see the Straits of Malacca and what that has done for Singapore, and Dr. Dean and Ibrahim, you guys know my connection to Singapore. And then, of course, what's happening now in all of these places, you do create opportunities. Jamaica has one of those blessings of geography, but we need to make sure that we understand the concentration risks of such a blessing, right? And again, when you have geopolitical issues, these things can exacerbate those things. So you have structural risks. Remember what happened last year with the Ever Given ship in the Suez Canal. And then you have the geopolitical risks. You see what's going on in Yemen and Iran. We do have the environmental risks that exist with with not just things like the Panama Canal, and there's no war going on in Panama, but right now there's an issue with rainfall. And then of course you do have storm systems and whatever that are pervasive throughout the world. So just a little quick tour around the world. You see on the left, Strait of Hormuz in Iran. You do have the Ever Given ship in the Suez Canal last year. You do know what's going on in the Black Sea right now with merchant shipping, the grain deal that sometimes is on, sometimes is off. And then of course you do have bombardment and missile attacks, drone attacks, all that stuff happening at the same time. We do see, again, and people talk about piracy and think about Captain Jack and all of that stuff, but you do have the hijacking of the Maersk Alabama in 2009 that was turned into a movie. And then you have actual Somali pirates. But again, it's not just off the coast of Somalia or Yemen that these things are happening. Piracy is happening in Singapore right now, and there's a major concern about increased piracy. Piracy is robbery attempts or whatever in international waters. You guys know that. And then you have robberies when you're inside your territorial waters. And then these guys in Singapore, you don't hear about these things, but they're jumping on board trying to steal car parts, engine parts, those type of stuff. Not the whole ship, and they're not holding anything for ransom. But it's a robbery on international waters, and these things create risks for insurance, both in terms of personal liability and other stuff. So this is happening right now. This is not just some theoretical Hollywood thing. We do have what happened in Italy in 2012 with that stupid captain on that cruise ship Costa Concordia. And then, but what was interesting, again, a minister said it in terms of looking at Earth observation system. I'm here, scanning the world, looking for anomalies, mostly in landscape anomalies. And you're over Isola di Giglio off the Tuscany coast in Italy, and you see a perfectly normal port side of a ship. Except I'm just remembering I'm actually looking straight down from space, so I shouldn't see the side of a ship from space. And there's what you see on the right, a perfect side profile of a ship from space, because that ship was sideways. Again, those kind of stuff exists out there. And again, I mentioned Panama a few times so far. So this is what's happening. You guys know the marine ecosystem is not just ships. It's also ports. It's also freight people. It's also customs people. All of this exists in the maritime ecosystem. You do have financiers. You do have all these people operating. You do have different types of shipping activities. You have your bulk cargo, your container cargo. You have your ro-ro ships. You have your military ships. You have your fishing ships. You have your ferries, your tugs, your barges. All these things are happening out there in that marine space. And again, when we look at the different types of risks, the geopolitical risks now is not just Russia-Ukraine conflict, hot wars, hot conflicts, but we do have territorial disputes like what's going on in the South China Sea right now. We do have international sanctions that exist, what's going on with Venezuela, Syria, not just the axis of evil countries, but you do have these things happening. You talk about what the US Department of State is saying about sanctions evasions, and people are using the maritime industry to evade sanctions. You do see UK companies companies and not just governments involved in sanctions and so on. You do have operational stuff like hijacked, stolen vessels, damaged vessels, but increasingly with technology, port community systems and all these online systems, cyber security becomes another very important thing that can cripple the industry if these things are not addressed properly. So again, the kind of engineering focus, computer engineering as well, is going to be very important. But I do want to go back into my comfort zone a little bit, and Dr. Potopsingh will appreciate this element. Looking at geological risks. Now, I'm a geologist, and again, you look at these things, and we see earthquakes. I mean, last week we had an event in Jamaica, and then people are wondering if the drought caused the earthquake. And again, there is no relationship between climate and geology, so let's just put that to rest, right? But geological risks do pose risks to the maritime environment. So, I mean, we know what happened in Boxing Day 2004 when you had that massive earthquake in the Indian Ocean, and we saw what happened to beaches and people, hundreds of thousands of people dying and so on. And obviously these things affected ports, but it also destroyed 28 lighthouses. I specifically went and focused just on the lighthouse component here, because again, all the different components of the maritime system are very important for navigation, for safety, and so on. But of course, closer to home in 2010, we had an earthquake in January of that year that affected Haiti, that destroyed their port infrastructure, and I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Last year in Tonga, there was a massive volcanic eruption, and that's the image that you see on your top right, and the kind of shock wave that pushed out could be visible from space, one of the most spectacular volcanic eruptions ever observed from space. And of course, that kind of activity can not only affect land-based or near-shore shipping, but can also affect shipping in the open water. And then, of course, in 1883, we had the Krakatoa eruption in Indonesia, one of the largest eruptions ever reported. And a Dutch ship turned and went straight through a tsunami wave and survived. But the important thing about this was that this provided very important first-hand eyewitness account of what happened with that event, which was very important when the early stages of volcanology and volcano science, having this kind of eyewitness testimony, and that came from a shipping firm. Krakatoa erupted a few years ago in 2018 and killed another 32 people. So these things exist, right? But then let's shift a little bit to climate change, where a lot of this stuff, a lot of the buzzwords are happening right now. Sea level rise, erosion, siltation, all these things happening. Extreme weather, drought and storm, increasing frequencies and magnitude. But these things can affect shipping, but shipping also contributes to climate change. So these are the kind of feedback that's happening right now in the environmental space. So, but very quickly, I'm just going to take you a very quick tour. This is Haiti right before the January earthquake, and you can see the port infrastructure, the container yard, and so on. Right after the earthquake, we had, you can see the pier was damaged. The container yard, those white stuff that you see there that didn't exist before, that's the result of liquefaction. The white stuff is underneath the pavement. The soil became a slurry, and the whole container yard started to move, or especially in reclaimed land, these things happen. And again, this is a very key risk with respect to especially landside infrastructure with respect to earthquakes, especially on reclaimed land. We simulated the Haiti earthquake in Jamaica along the same fault line, NWKO Plantain Garden Fault, and brought it as close to the capital city of Jamaica as this earthquake was, this epicenter was to the capital city of Haiti. Same parameters, same fault. And we simulated a Haiti earthquake in Jamaica, and you can see what that looks like. It's not the kind of neat concentric circles that you see on CNN. It's a function of the local geology that allows for earthquake waves to move. Right, Dr. Potopsingh? Right? So yeah, she knows this stuff. So it's very important that we take these things into consideration. So when we zoom in on Kingston, the areas in yellow, hard rock geology, a different type of environment for earthquake waves to move through. Moving onto the Lyew plain right now, alluvial sediment, earthquake moves a little bit faster in alluvial sediment. And then we hit the dark red stuff, Palisados, downtown Kingston, Newport East and West, where you start to reclaim land, Portmore, reclaim land. The only thing you're seeing is unknown in terms of the seismic model. Not to say that the people who are doing the geotechnical work don't know what they're doing, it's just it hasn't been tested in an earthquake environment. But again, we're going to see later on the importance of geotechnical engineering as a solution for especially land-based stuff. And everybody does that when you go to Giddy House, which is the textbook example of liquefaction, where structures sink or when the ground begins to act like a slurry. Now we look at regional geohazards, again, Earth observation. Again, you remember those shipping lines that I showed you earlier. I dropped on top a real-time image of the weather. This was done last week when I prepared this presentation, and that is the Hurricane Nigel. That was real last week, heading towards Bermuda. So just keep an eye. You can actually look at real-time weather patterns on top of your existing activities, okay? But then we can also layer on every single tropical, wave tropical storm, Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3, Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricane ever reported. And you can see that this area has a particular intensity. Guyana is lucky, again, geography, right? But again, we know what's going on in terms of the environment, in terms of return period calculation, intensities, and so on. But again, remember, hurricane is not a single straight line. A hurricane has wind fields. So even though you may not get the eye of the storm, the wind field extends from the center. And what the nature of this wind field is determines the nature of the damage and risk and so on. This is for the last couple of years. This is not just every single one ever, because we couldn't see the world. But the key thing here is the use of data to begin to assess your current risk, future risk, near-term, long-term, frequent return periods, all those type of calculations can be done. And again, you look at geological risks now. In this case here, you can probably barely see it, but those dark blue dots are every single earthquake reported. You have the red triangles, which are every single volcano in the region, and then the red lines are the plate boundaries. So again, you can see where earthquake risks, hurricane, tropical storm risks are in relation to a real-time Hurricane Nigel out there in the Atlantic Ocean. All of this information can be properly digested and put through. Whether you're going to do it for a study or you're going to make a real-time system out of this database exists. When we look at climate change in the maritime industry, and we look at maritime industry and shipping, you can see where shipping contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and there's climate change happening. Climate change results in sea level rise. Sea level rise can alter currents. Currents can cause either deposition in a particular area that block up your shipping channel, or it can erode the port environment and mash up your piers. All of these things are happening, and again, it's a loop, right? You have ice melting in the north, causing new opportunities for shipping in the northwest. In Canada and Alaska and so on. But then again, this creates a negative climate change impact, and you have this kind of terrible thing going on back and forth. So it begins to show you that there is always a cause and effect going on happening, especially as it relates to climate. It's very complex, but it's very interrelated. And so on. So again, from a risk mitigation standpoint, we have seen where diplomatic channels can work, but also how clear lines of communication, real-time information fed to practitioners as well as regulators help to understand and diffuse what's going on, mitigate your risk, don't steer right into a war zone and so on. But from an environmental standpoint, we do know things like the International Maritime Organization has adopted resolutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. All of those things are all steps in the right direction. But always, especially from the point of view of a university, investment and continued investment and support, political support, financial support from private sector and others to continue supporting research and development. And all of this would lead to the response from the maritime industry. We're talking about that financing, bringing money to the table, raising money, bringing ideas to the table now helps to move you towards new products, new ideas, right? You now have ships that are cleaner, hydrogen fueled. You now have ships being moved more efficiently, and port systems are more efficient. These things also have economic benefits as well. And these things, a negative feedback loop can also be a positive feedback loop, and we need to be able to do that. The world is, the population is still growing, and people still do aspire to a better lifestyle. A better lifestyle have increasing consumptive behavior. All of those type of things, we need to make sure that we can't shut down the world simply because something bad is happening on the other side. It has to be balanced out. So everything is in the same way that climate change and shipping industry is very complex and interrelated. So are the solutions that weave themselves into those problems. So moving towards the engineering approaches right now, obviously I'm biased towards the technology component here, but again, looking at, and this is key, looking at the maritime and non-maritime components is critical. The specialists in the maritime need to understand that they're specialists elsewhere. And Minister mentioned it earlier, and I sent a note to the team. He mentioned the Scientific Research Council, the need for these types of research to be going on outside the maritime realm. Syncing with your own activities at the CMU to begin to bring information. You have information fusion of your own stuff, your own operational stuff, but again, combine it with climate and weather, two different things. You combine it with geographic information, but also hydrographic information that's also going to be very important. And the databases, right, that are also involved there have to be integrated. Real-time system connecting ships, cargo, port, all of those things are going to be key. And obviously, data sharing. That's always a bugbear in terms of, especially developing countries. How do you share data properly and in a timely manner? But then I do drift, Admiral, to the military, right? The military has a very important frontline role, not just in combating anti-piracy and those types of operations, but they do have very important roles with disaster response, whether they're going to be man-made disasters at sea or they're going to be environmental disasters. They need to be able to have assets that are able to be deployed for threat detection, threat response, all of those things. And then you have the hard engineering, reinforced doors for your ships and layered defenses, both physical, electronic, all of those things combining to present your engineering solution. But again, Desmond, you understand the geotechnical role now, the design of your ports, the design of your buildings and facilities, all of those things have to factor in. How do you create facilities that can withstand hurricanes, that can withstand earthquakes? The key thing here, you can't move your port inland, right? But seas are rising. So we're going to have to make sure that you're able to future-proof your system with proper engineering and thinking. Again, this is from Singapore. Again, I have a lot of experience in dealing with these guys over there. And again, what both their Navy and their Coast Guard have a vast range of assets that are used, including submarines. I didn't even realize that. But again, they're being deployed again in the shipping lanes in the Straits of Malacca in their own territorial waters. But the key thing here is especially in that space where you have Indonesia and Malaysia right in their backyard, and then further out you do have Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, Philippines, Brunei, and so on. That you share information between territories, and then you use your assets to respond. You do have airborne assets as well as seaborne assets, all to the same purpose, and then you do have an information fusion center on your right that combines global data, weather data, all of that type of stuff, and information coming from other jurisdictions in one central place to determine their own operational use. Now, Again, this is, Dr. Deans, you know over there as well. This is part of their port management system being used at Tuas. Tuas is in the west of Singapore. 65 million TEU operation going on. So it's very complex, they're moving very fast. So a lot, the kind of information flow that has to be deployed to handle a 25 million TEU port is going to be crucial. But again, how do you update this system? How do you keep out hackers and people who are going to shut down your system? All of that is continuous. It's not deploy and walk away. It's live, and they continue moving in terms of shipping activity on the port, the cargo, where what is, and all of those type of stuff is happening at scale. When we look at the Earth observation system I've been showing you early on and throughout the presentation, I've highlighted the shipping routes themselves in bright yellow. These are the most intensive shipping routes, and again you can see where the Panama Canal is, Jamaica's position at the crossroads of two different shipping routes going to Texas and going to the east coast of the US. But when we begin to look at opportunities in transport, multimodal transport systems, it's not just shipping. Right? We have to look at air shipping, we have to look at rail transport and so on. So I overlaid every single point-to-point air route in the world, and I highlighted in green those air routes that go directly to Jamaica, both Sangster and Norman Manley in green. The red one is Trinidad and the blue one is Barbados, just because, I can do any combinations, right? But when you look at all the air traffic routes and then you combine it with all the sea traffic routes, you get to begin to see what's happening. Jamaica is literally, geographically in the center of this Latin America, north and south. Any combination you want to put it, we're in the middle. And then how you leverage this information is going to be key. I'm sure you guys are doing stuff like this. And Professor Spencer, this is just me in my basement tinkering around with stuff that I see. It could be useful, right? But again, when you begin to not just look at earthquakes and climate data and tell everybody the world is going to die, you have to see how these things affect different industries, how these things affect different economies, how these things affect different lives. So you put this together and, this is just me messing around. But, so I'm wrapping up now. The key thing is to collaborate. And I see this happening both locally and internationally at CMU. Your local partner, don't dismiss your local partners. There's nothing wrong with Jamaican agencies and companies, institutions, and so on. Minister Vaz mentioned the SRC. That stuff you saw earlier with the port management system at Singapore was developed jointly by the PSA, the Port of Singapore Authority, and their equivalent of the SRC, the High Performance Computing Lab. They have an equivalent, a national science facility, just like our SRC. So work with them, help them, challenge them to step up their game for practical application in the marine sciences. Why not, right? But collaboration is going to be key. And then right now, moving outside your areas of domain expertise. Don't just focus on maritime only. You think about other stuff. I've spent some time this morning talking about climate and earthquakes, not to freak you out, but to show you what those possibilities are and how they connect directly to your realm. But again, focusing on the big picture, and this is something where political leadership has been very good at. Keep the big picture, make sure you don't drift, but also know your limits. We're not going to become, Dr. Deans, you know this, we're not going to become Singapore overnight. It's more than just infrastructure to it's deep cultural and social stuff that have to be done as well. But know your limits, and don't freak out when this doesn't happen overnight. Right. So again, in wrapping up, the key thing, and which is why the good stuff you hear about CMU is excellent, because you're looking at tangible solutions. We're not just talking. This conference is as much about showcasing what's already been done, what is being done, and what will be done, rather than just complaining. Right? So there's a practical dimension to this conference here, but we need to adapt the engineering approach, the engineering philosophy. And I know when Desmond with JIE, you guys have such a practical orient. It's not just complaining and writing op-eds, but actually you guys are at the forefront in the trenches doing this type of stuff. Understanding the connection between private sector, individuals, academia, all these things have to be continually moving together to make this thing right. And Jamaica's on the right track. You know what's happening with your port community system is very impressive. It was a sea change in terms of how you guys operate here in this country. But again, it has to be more than just customs forms and whatever. It has to be a total approach in terms of how this thing is going to work. It was mentioned several times this morning, the focus of CMU. That's important. You have it here. We know what to do. We have the right people in place. So we're on the right track. This is not just about freaking out and complaining. But for some perspective, again, this is a few years old, but this is the activity in Kingston over a 12-hour period, a couple of years ago, pre-COVID. So you can see, cargo ships versus other ships moving in the Kingston Harbor. But for the exact same period in Singapore, that's what's going on over there. And then you have Dubai on the right. So just to give you a sense of what we are dealing with in terms of our, comparing ourselves to other places. What we want to be that is not just about attracting people to our waters, it's about everything. The systems, the processes, the business environment, everything has to be enabling for this to happen. So with that being said, thank you all very much. Thank you for inviting me here. And I hope, for a good conference. Thank you. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parris, Lyew, Ayee. I know you were not expecting to see me, but Dr. Johnson has stepped out just to deal with a matter. I'm just going to invite Dr. Parris, Lyew, Ayee to the front of the podium along with the president to make a quick presentation. Again, a round of applause for him. We're showing you the CMU brand as well, so notice CMU right in the front. Thank you very much. And now we're going to be taking a 15-minute coffee break. So we will see you back at, what time is it? Yes, let's make that 11:15. 11:15? 11:05. Thank you. A room full of engineers and people from the STEM sector. Thank you so much. See you at 11:05.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, and I hope that those who have been called to the bar will get here with the other seafaring professionals that are in the house. We are moving to our power panel this morning, a panel discussion to look at the energy behind engineering. And we have some gems here in the form of people from the industry. They are CMU gems. The first of whom is our council member who will chair this very august panel in September. Dr. Therese Chambers is a member of CMU Council and an associate professor at the University of Technology, Jamaica, and I dare say an engineer in her own right. I invite to the podium Dr. Therese Chambers, who will introduce you to her panel and take us through the discussion on the energy behind engineering. And we can give some positive energy.
Good morning, everyone. I am quite happy to be here to talk to you all, or to have this panel speak to you all regarding energy behind engineering. And we have a very interesting panel, and I hope you had some time to go through your conference book to just read a little bit more about them. But let me tell you about, well, I'll tell you what I know about our guests here. As Dr. Smith-Johnson said a while ago, there are two graduates of the CMU here. Mr. Errol Dias, he's of the Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, and Mr. Garfield Irvin of the New Fortress Energy. And for the budding engineers here, these are two people who you must know. So after this, please make sure you go shake their hands and try and get some contact details for them, all right? And with me is my longtime colleague, Dr. Ruth Potopsingh, the head of the Caribbean Sustainable Energy and Innovation Institute at the University of Technology, Jamaica. Now, I will be asking each individual to have an opening statement. They'll do a small presentation, and then we'll move into the discussions. And I will also be asking for questions from you, the audience, so that our panelists, to help spur the discussion and keep our panelists engaged. Pick their brains, all right? Thank you. So I will start with Dr. Ruth Potopsingh. And you can come to the podium if you choose.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chambers, colleague, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by congratulating Professor Spencer and his team for the visionary leadership that you have shown, not just to Jamaica, but to the wider Caribbean and to the world. And I'm really, really encouraged by the youthful approaches, and to see your students is really a treat for me. So thank you very much. Our keynote speaker this morning is very difficult to follow, because I think he covered everything that I would have wanted to say and much more eloquently. So I think, Professor Dr. Parris, Lyew, we are so happy to have had you present to us this morning. So the theme, managing risks in the maritime industry through the application of engineering solutions. And I begin by saying that I'm a sustainable development planner, but a lot of people think I'm an engineer, but I am going to say I am a sustainable development planner, a geographer, geologist, manager, and so on. But it's necessary to pull all these things together in our modern world. And the world really faces urgent and complex challenges in terms of attaining global sustainability. And so climate change has become the major driver of innovation, having regard to profitability, efficiency, environmental sustainability. And the maritime industry is poised and right there in the middle, given that this industry accounts for up to 80 to 90% of the goods that are moved globally. So it's very important that when we consider the area of climate change and the whole area of sustainability, that we look at the engineering behind all the operations in the industry. So you are an indispensable industry and indispensable to modern living and for improving the quality of life of our peoples. This also means that a lot of energy is used in the maritime industry. This is required to support the movement of vessels, also for the logistics, including ground transportation, storage, refrigeration, and so on. It is estimated that the industry uses approximately 87 billion gallons of maritime fuels annually. These are fossil fuel based, and you know, in the dialogue of climate change, fossil fuels is a bad man. So we are here poised to have our engineers challenged by the need to shift to cleaner, more renewable fuels. Engineers, therefore, have the responsibility of developing and optimizing energy systems which can reduce emissions and promote cleaner and more sustainable energy generation. Also, to improve energy efficiency, reducing energy waste, and minimizing the impact of on the environment, bearing in mind the triple bottom line of profit, people, and planet. Recall that investors in the maritime industry need a return on their investment, and a good one as well. So in considering the options, you have to look at, engineers have to consider the types of fuels that can be produced economically, that are clean, and that are very affordable. So challenges like global warming require knowledge and practical solutions that engage the social, environmental, and economic dimensions. Cleaner fuels mean that refineries have to adjust their manufacturing processes to meet international protocols, as we saw in the IMO MARPOL protocol in 2020, when the international regulation demanded that all fuels be 0.05% sulfur unless they had a scrubber on board. So with these shifts, it is required that the industry looks at the whole system of fuels. Sulfur containment is only one aspect of the need for cleaner fuels, because we really have to address the area of carbon dioxide emissions. So while we will be reducing sulfur oxides in the atmosphere and having a cleaner environment, we also have to ensure that the carbon dioxide footprint, or the carbon footprint, is reduced. So ships are therefore switching to liquefied natural gas, and I know one of my colleagues, panelists, will be addressing that, using solar photovoltaic systems and wind energy for propulsion, as well as to meet other energy needs on vessels. So in today's world, the energy behind engineering takes into consideration cleaner fuels. And when we think about energy, we tend to focus on fuels, but we have other aspects that we have to consider in terms of design of your ships, design of even your systems, your IT systems. What can be made more efficient and more cost effective? optimizing energy use to reduce energy consumption is key and will ultimately lead to saving more money or earning more money and resources. Designing your port infrastructure to enhance clean energy supplies is important because when the ships do come in, you need clean energy, you need energy, a good supply, safe and regular and reliable supply to, and I know the producers and sellers of bunkers and LNG will be very happy to know that you have opportunities for providing a service in these areas. Dr. Ayee this morning spoke about the need for research and development into new fuels, new systems, not just for cleaner fuels, but for programs, for your IT systems. Now that you have been introduced to the use of AI, there are opportunities for the use of AI by engineers for making your systems more efficient. But we live in a complex and integrated world. So the energy behind engineering must anticipate future impacts on various ecosystems. Hence, engineering technological solutions must be mindful of the social, environmental, and economic considerations. Technology is key, but it must be combined with the other factors, as Dr. Lyew spoke this morning about what is happening in the geopolitical space and your awareness of what is happening globally, not just in your local environment, but also international requirements, international regulations, and like Professor Spencer being the visionary, we have to be visionaries in the industry to anticipate what is happening, because during the COVID pandemic, we saw the impact of delays in the shipping industry and how people's goods and other services were impacted. We had to pay a lot more for goods and services if we even got them. Many projects, even renewable energy projects, were delayed because we could not get shipments out of China, for instance. And so the industry is so important that we have to focus on the technological fixes as well as the other subsidiary areas that are needed to support the industry. These are my few words to encourage you that we live in a complex and challenging situation where global sustainability is going to be at the forefront of your minds. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Potopsingh. I now invite Mr. Errol Dias. Thank you, Dr. Are you hearing me now? Okay, thank you, Dr. Potopsingh. I'll invite now Mr. Errol Dias of the Jamaica Public Service to make his presentation, his opening presentation.
Good afternoon, well, morning, still morning. So it's pretty interesting that I'm here. The last time I represented Maritime and spoke at an event at Maritime was Dr. Ajaguna. That was 2009. But Dr. Spencer, it was good meeting you, and I just want to recognize you. I really appreciate the fact that Maritime continues to blaze the torch in events like these, because the maritime industry, it's a critical industry, not just in Jamaica, but, in the global space, So thanks again for inviting me, and I really hope that from this session, we can all learn and have positive takeaways. So I normally like to start off with a quote, and it's from Martin Luther King today. It says, the strongest storms make the best sailors, right? The strongest games make the best players, because right here in this room, there are many players, right? And at the end of the day, tougher challenges make the best leaders. So there's a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience here, especially for the graduates, that it's important that you tap into, right? So before we go into our panel discussion, I just want to give a brief overview of my company. Well, can start off with what I do. I mean, I pretty much work in the losses department of my company. I've been in management probably over 10, 11 years now. In my current role, I pretty much implement capital projects for JPS to reduce non-technical losses. Over the last 6 or 7 years, would have implemented through my unit just under $20 million US. So a lot of persons would have probably in the media heard about RAMI, Residential Automated Metering Infrastructure, or anti-theft meter infrastructure. That is routed through my unit. So pretty much my team and I, we do the assessment, the design, and the implementation for such systems. Now, I just want to pretty much give you an overview of where things are at. Presentation, please. So officially, happy Maritime World Day. Now, JPS, who is JPS really? What is JPS about? I'll just go briefly, because JPS is a pretty touchy point, in Jamaica, very touchy point. But today, we just want to look at it from a positive perspective and from a perspective of education, right? So JPS as it is now is 80% pretty much owned by international investors, and the government and some small shareholders owning the other 20%. So power generation comes from a mixture of fossil fuel sources, renewable energy sources, as you can see there on the board. So overall capacity that is here in the island is just over 1,040 megawatt hours thereabout. And our peak demand at any given time right now in Jamaica, which we have seen an increase since the country opened up back after the COVID, to 693, just under 700 megawatt hours. So it was this year that would have seen our highest demand as a country. And that in itself speaks positively that there is some amount of growth going on economically, right? Now, our customer base is just over 680,000 customers, and that can be broken out into small customers, pretty much just about 90% of that amount, and small to large commercial, just under 3%. And then we have other customer bases like the government and stuff like that, pretty much account for another 7.07%, right? Now, I pretty much put this there just for educational purposes. Why? Because it truly shows the mix of our energy use as a country. Because at times, especially for the engineers, this is a pretty important document for you to understand that which you're studying now and how those roles play. How does that education that you're trying to achieve play a role into the whole energy mix of Jamaica? So as you can see from there, we have pretty much our base load, which these are pretty much the units that are running for the most part, right? Now, what JPS does, a lot of persons would have asked the question, what is IPP? Now, independent power producers, these are companies outside of JPS that pretty much supplies energy to you through JPS. So those customers that are, all our customers are pretty much served by not only JPS units, but IPPs. And how it is done is pretty much through what is called a economic dispatch. So a lot of persons ask the question, how is it that it is, how the units pretty much come online? It's through that term economic dispatch right there. So that is also a regulated space and highly monitored by the OUR to ensure that there is fair practices in terms of the dispatching of unit, because it does of the units, because it does affect the customers' price on their bill at the end of the day, right? Now, to put things into perspective, this is pretty much our generation mix, right? So as you can see for combined cycle, which primarily is through LNG, that's 46% in terms of renewables, which is where we are going as a country, as we look to decarbonize the whole maritime industry, that pretty much accounts for about 12%, right? We have phased out all the steam turbines, and then diesel engines pretty much take up another 29%. So as I had explained before, renewables account for 12% of the fuel mix. Heavy fuel oil, another 29%, and LNG, as I said before, 58%. Now, JPS pretty much have just under 14,000 kilometers of lines across the island. That's transmission and distribution lines. I'm primarily on the distribution side of the business. Generation, whilst I have it right there, is just for perspective to show where our 138 lines go, our 69 lines, and also our different producers and where they are in the island. So on that chart that you're seeing there, you can see the wind turbines. You're talking about BMR, you're talking about Wigton, you have the solar farms, and the different types of other sources of power generation from a fuel perspective. Now, JPS's greatest threat, right? And this is just the top three. We're talking about fuel costs, the theft of electricity, the reliability of which has to do with the grid. Now, at the end of the day, this pretty much affects our customer, you, right? Now, what does that speak to when I talk about the customer? You're talking about the quality of the service that we pretty much give to our customers. That's a really big thing. I can recall in my younger years when lights used to go away, I pretty much have to check the paper on a weekly basis for the schedule because the light goes away like that for prolonged periods, hours of the day. So it's a big difference for me, not because I work at the company, but it's out of experience, because I can still remember many nights wanting to do my homework and there was no power, right? Now, what is JPS's role in the maritime industry? And I deliberately use those two arrows. It's not that they're pulling apart, but it shows that they actually have to come together to really work, Now, at the end of the clicker. All right, there we go. So how the company positions itself as a critical, well, it does have an important, what's that word I'm looking for? It does have a big effect on the maritime industry, right? But I really want to look at the maritime industry because there's 4 pillars that really speaks to what the maritime industry is about. And from there, I pretty much broke it down into 3 different categories, which primarily is the people. Second aspect of it would be assets. But the people and the assets really come together to form one big function, and that is logistics, and that's a global language. And that's another thing, or another program that Maritime offers, right? Which at the end of the day, without the people, logistics cannot function, or without the assets, logistics still cannot function. So when I look at it objectively, I do believe that logistics, it's really the end product of really the maritime industry if you look at it objectively. Now, some of the challenges that are being faced by the maritime industry. Now, this is just 5 that I chose, right? Talking about decarbonization of the industry, workforce challenges, environmental regulations, cyber attacks, geopolitical tension. And these are some of the issues that came out in earlier presentations, right? And I'm going somewhere with it. So it will all come together in about a minute or 2. So JPS's value pillars. I pretty much summarize it in this word right here. And as you can see, it's impact. Now, JPS focuses on innovation, mindset change, passion, agility, collaboration, and transparency, as opposed to what a lot of persons may believe. Now, how will JPS make an impact? It's really through 3 different dimensions, right? People, and when you talk about people, you're talking about employee culture. You're talking about high-performing persons who are accountable, who can create positive change for you, the customer, for the maritime industry. We want to engage and have the right people in the right place, right? Hire and develop employees that at the end of the day will be proficient in all areas of the business. To also promote and recognize, reward performance, because at the end of the day, as I said before, people play a critical role in any organization really moving forward. The second aspect of it is the processes. So for us as a company, we're consistently looking at the existing technologies and how do we also leverage new technologies, right? How do we as a company, at the end of the day, utilize global best practices to make not just the company, but the maritime industry, the country, a better place? And the final thing is really the technology, and that is that also came out today. We want to invest in real-time systems and industry standard software that will benefit the maritime industry. If you think about it objectively, power is behind this industry. So whilst JPS can plug in a ship, but we can ensure that there is reliable supply, right? We can ensure at the end of the day that the power stays on. We can ensure at the end of the day that from an IT perspective, you're getting clean electricity that won't damage equipment, right? So JPS's impact on the maritime industry, for me, can be summarized in these 3 points. We continue to roll out a smart grid, which can provide to our stakeholders in the maritime industry energy management support, energy efficiency support, on-demand usage data, which is a critical component in managing your energy use and getting data to make decisions that will make your companies more efficient, right? Now, reliability. As I said before, as a company continues to roll out a smart grid, it's continuous improvement. It's not an overnight process, right? And also, at the end of the day, as I said before, have reduced outages, provide clean power quality. In terms of service, which is the other big aspect of it, is improved customer service, new and improved communication channels. And for a number of stakeholders now, the company has embarked on specific units, reaching out to the customers, addressing their needs where they are, and seeing how best we can keep you on the grid, right? So that's pretty much it. Any questions, Dr. Chambers? Are you? Okay, all right. So thank you. All right.
Invite Mr. Irvin to make a short presentation regarding his role at the new Fortis Energy.
All protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I must say it's quite a good feeling to be here today. Being a past student and an alum of CMU, I see so many familiar faces, and I must say you're all looking wonderful, and it's great to be here. So I'm just gonna briefly go into a quick presentation. My panelist colleagues here today have gone through quite a bit of what I'm going to speak about today. And also the presentation from Dr. Ayee, it pretty much set the precedence for what I'm going to speak about. And, you know, speaking about memories, when he used the term choke points in his presentation earlier, it brought me back to a place where I traversed almost all of those choke points when I was in my younger years sailing all over the world. And, I could relate to the challenges he spoke about and the importance of those choke points in the maritime sector. And, if those risks are not managed, how it could impact our lives in a negative way. So again, a lot of what has been spoken already, it ties into my presentation. And, you will, I hope that at the end of this presentation, you will see a clearer picture and understand how important it is for all of us to use whatever resources we have and come together to find meaningful solutions. So we're going to get to know a little bit about LNG in this presentation. And most of you would have already studied something about LNG, given that we, New Fortress Energy, have been in Jamaica's space for a couple of years now. Now, LNG is primarily consisting of methane, and methane is a natural gas. And how we get the liquefied component to the natural gas is that we put it through a process known as liquefaction. Now, Dr. Ayee spoke about liquefaction earlier, and his liquefaction had a different meaning from what my liquefaction is. Now, this kind of liquefaction is basically subcooling the natural gas to cryogenic temperatures, whereby it changes its state from gas to a liquefied state. So we mean, taking it from ambient temperature to minus 160 degrees Celsius or minus 262 degrees Fahrenheit, whereby it gets to a state where we can manage it properly and safely, and where we can transport it and use it for all our needs. Now, when I think about the energy behind engineering, it basically speaks to the core of NFE's, or New Fortress Energy, existence in this market space. And I tell you why. Because our business is built on using the resources that we have access to, and that precious commodity is LNG, and leveraging that with engineering solutions from our in-house engineering team, or engineering teams that we may consult with, to bring about world-class and top-of-the-line market solutions. And that's exactly what we have done here in Jamaica. Now we'll get into a project that is very near and dear to me. It's a project that I manage and operate here in Jamaica. And it's a project that basically ensures that we are having all of this electricity, we are able to live and operate in comfort, and basically ties myself and Mr. Dias at the hip, because we have to work together in order to get the end result. All right, so back on cue, LNG. So once we extract the gas and we liquefy it, then we have it in a state where we are able to use it, right? Now, why LNG is economical? It's abundant, it's cleaner, and it's safer. You can go a little bit deeper in your research on your own. In the interest of time, we're rolling forward. Now, when LNG is brought into a liquefied state, if we go back to our basic chemistry and physics lessons, and we study the states of matter, solid, liquid, and gas, we know that the gaseous particles are further apart, then the liquid particles are a bit closer together, and then solid, they are more compact. Now, think about natural gas. In the gaseous state, particles are further apart. Now, by changing it to liquid, we are able to bring 600 gas particles into one liquid particle, right? So it means that we are compressing all of that natural gas, bringing it into liquid, so we can transport more in liquid volume, and in that state, we are better able to control the product, right? Now, I'm gonna move forward to how we use or apply that LNG in the local market here. Well, in many markets overseas, they use it for heating, they use it for power generation. Our main application here in Jamaica is through power generation. And then, you know, we spoke a lot about the impact or trying to find engineering solutions that will impact the environment in a positive way. Seeing is believing. And if you look at the chimney here or the stack, you are seeing before LNG how we have that, all of that sulfur. Dr. Potopsingh spoke about it earlier. And then after LNG, you can't see it. You know, colorless, odorless, good for the environment, and we know all of those positive impact. Now, our customers save 25 to 50% by switching to natural gas from its oil-based fuels. LNG safety, quick safety brief. You don't want to touch LNG. It is sub-zero temperatures in the range of minus 160 degrees C. So you'll definitely get frostbite. Don't want to do that. We have spills that can occur, but if treated with respect in the right way, we try to avoid those completely. But if it does so, then it forms a vapor cloud, and then with the vapor cloud, it's easier to ignite. And then we get static charges through the pipelines as it passes through the pipeline. So we put things in place to fight against those. So a couple of case studies here. Yeah, a couple of case studies here. This is one of our projects, Clarendon Distillers, and they use 11,000 gallons of LNG in ISO tanks. Now we have several applications here and several projects here in Jamaica. I'm going to go deeper into the larger scale projects, which I'm a part of those operations. And then the smaller scale projects, such as Clarendon Distillers, we supply or we provide solutions for customers who are looking to run on their own power. So on this case study, 4 million liters of HFO was displaced. So you can imagine the impact of that displaced HFO with LNG and the impact that has on the environment by switching to a cleaner, more reliable and safer fuel. So quickly going into the energy behind engineering, and we get to what I spoke about earlier, is that NFE leverages our access to the precious commodity LNG to provide world-class engineering solutions that are applicable to these kind of markets. So Jamaica had a problem, and NFE said, okay, listen, we have the commodity, we have the expertise, let us supply you, let us build out the infrastructure, let us operate it for you, and then we give you a full-scale solution so that you are on the right path to ensuring sustainability. Now, the Old Harbour LNG terminal is the facility that I manage and operate. And it was constructed, started construction in Q4 2017, and we completed construction Q1 2019 on March 4th, 2019, where we achieve COD at a budget of $86 million and completed everything on time. Now, you can see some time-lapse photos, Q2, when we started erecting or berthing dolphins, Q3, when we started to implement the walkways control center, and Q4, where we achieve mechanical completion, and Q1 2019, we started operations. Now, a lot of the data that we would have relied on in the development of this infrastructure could be some of the same data that Dr. Ayee and his team, that they work up together as engineers to collect that data in the scientific research, to see the various impact and how all of that ties together with the development of infrastructure. We use all of that data to come up with what we have built here today. And through what we have built, we have now a FSRU, a floating storage and regasification unit, whereby we eliminated the need to build a regasification facility on land, so we don't have to go to NEPA to get all of the approvals for building in a protected area. We were able to build this 4 nautical miles offshore, and then erect subsea pipelines and sending gas to our 2 main customers, SJPC. We saw it on Mr. Dias' merit order, which is 194 megawatt to the grid. And then our power plant at CCHP, where we do another 94 megawatt. That's almost 300 megawatt there. And then what we do now as well is that we shuttle the liquid from the FSRU around to Montego Bay, whereby we supply Bogue with natural gas for power production, which is another, say, 120 megawatt. And it goes again to show the footprint of LNG and New Fortress Energy's contribution on the local market. Thank you very much, and we await your questions on the panel.
I thank my panelists for their presentations, and I have a few short questions for them, and then I'll take 2 questions, and then I'll take 2 questions from the audience. Hearing me? Okay. I'll start with Dr. Potopsingh, really, and because I know both. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Yes, this is better now. All right, so I was saying I'll start with Dr. Potopsingh for the questions, and then I'll ask the 2 gentlemen, and I'll allow the audience 2 questions, because I know we're very close to lunch. All right, so Dr. Potopsingh, based on your experience at the CSEII and with your knowledge of the Jamaica's Vision 2030 and the energy sector in particular, can you speak to how far along the pitch are we to achieving that? Well, it was 20%, but I know it was moved to 30. How far are we along the pitch to achieving that?
Yep, thank you. We have achieved quite a bit in terms of our infrastructure development in the areas of wind development. So, for instance, we have the Wigton Wind Farm, which produces about, has a capacity of about 67 megawatts of power that can be generated from wind. I also, and that is Wigton Wind Farm. There's another company, Blue Mountain Resources, that produces another 30 megawatt. And there are plans for new infrastructure in the area of wind generation. My colleague from JPS will tell you that wind is a renewable energy source, but the reliability is not as you would have for base load, and it's intermittent power. And so what JPS has done is to build out battery capacity for storage. So storage is very important for backup for wind energy, as well as for solar energy. In terms of solar energy, we have 2 large commercial size plants. One in Westmoreland, which is, I think it's over 37 megawatt, and we have one in Clarendon, which is 20 megawatt content solar. And the one in Westmoreland is 8 Rivers, right? So we also have, apart from wind and solar, and these are 2 renewable energy technologies that are being advanced significantly in the maritime industry. So can you imagine or vision wind turbines that are actually engineered to be placed on ships? And so this has been happening in the industry as the maritime industry seeks to decarbonize the industry. As I said before in my presentation, the industry uses a lot of fuel. 87 billion gallons, or approximately 330 million metric tons of marine fuels alone. And marine fuels, you have a range. You have the heavy fuel oil, you have the marine diesel oil, you have low sulfur, ultra low sulfur, and other marine gas. So, and I should say that our local Petrojam refinery produces that, as well as other companies that supply the shipping industry in Jamaica. So going back to the renewable energies, you have wind, you have solar, but you also have hydropower. And we have a capacity now of JPS that generates about 22 megawatts of energy from 2 rivers, or about 3 rivers. The major one being in St. Elizabeth, Magotty. And so that is another. And there's a potential for Jamaica to produce another 30 to 60 megawatt of electricity from hydropower. And there is biomass. In years past, the sugar factories were able to capitalize on the burning of the sugarcane bagasse, which is the waste from the sugar pulp. And there's one sugar factory that actually is self-sufficient in its production, Worthy Park, that they don't use any fossil fuels. And so there is potential for biomass to be used. In the maritime industry, a lot of research is going on in terms of what type of biofuels can be used, and these fuels must be affordable, and we must be able to utilize them in the marine industry. So for instance, Jamaica has mandated 10% ethanol in its gasoline. That is not recommended. The use of ethanol is not necessarily recommended in the shipping industry. So there are other options and there's hydrogen, there's green hydrogen, there is blue hydrogen, and there are other fuels that engineers are working on and scientists are working on to make it available to shipping on a wider scale. Of course, there is the question of affordability, because heavy fuel oil still remains one of the cheapest sources of fuels. And you know, the impact of the cost of fuels on the delivery of goods and services is going to be one of the areas. But in terms of where we are going along in Jamaica, I think we have an ambitious target of 50% renewable energy by 2030, which is just a mere 7 years away. So we would have to accelerate our pace for that type of development to happen.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Potopsingh. Still hearing me? All right, so I will then move now to Mr. Irvin of New Fortress Energy, because you are now supplying us with liquefied natural gas. What I'm interested to find out is how your operation, the New Fortress Energy operation, how it is affecting the local environment where you are.
So how our operations and supplying LNG affects the local environment where we are. First and foremost, going back to the fuels that the ships use. On board our floating storage and regasification unit that is moored offshore at Portland Bight. We do not use any of the marine grade heavy fuel oils or any of those fuels. We use the boil off or the BOG from said LNG that we are storing for gas production to our customers. We use that BOG to actually run the machinery on board the vessel. And by doing so, we are basically recycling the fuel that we are using for production. So again, if you go out and you look at the stack, we are not emitting any sulfur, any high-grade sulfur into the atmosphere. And so we are operating in a very clean space. We are providing training opportunities for the youth. We are providing job opportunities for local community personnel. We are, and if you look at it, I am a product of that. You know, having gained some international exposure and learning how the business operates, coming back to be a part of this project and hiring a team, training them, and pulling persons from the community and bringing them to a point now where they can operate these kind of machinery, where they can run these kind of facilities. It's really giving back to the environment. Now, we talk about the impact also of, reliability, yes. Mr. Dias. And, you alluded to the point where you remembered growing up, you had to check for the outage schedule. Since we have transitioned to the LNG supply, I'm sure that you have been more reliable on the national grid. And that's a fact. You know why? Because you're able to operate machinery for much longer periods without the frequency in maintenance stoppages.
And faster ramp-up times. Also.
Yeah. We are able to supply gas to gas turbines that are able to switch and ramp up to full capacity or ramp down to minimum capacity depending on the frequency. So when you switch off the AC and switch off the light, when all of you leave the office and you shut down the offices at 5:30, 6 o'clock, Mr. Dias sees that drop in demand, and then our facilities that we are supplying, they need to react to that change. And our fuel allows that kind of flexibility on the space.
And I can see the synergy between everyone. We can all see the synergy between
definitely
New Fortress Energy and JPS. So I'm going to pick on you now, Mr. Dias, because
sure.
You are able to respond based on the demand from the customers. But let me ask you, and only just two questions now, just one from you and one from the audience. Let me ask you, with the growth in private renewable energy in Jamaica, how has that impacted the operations of the JPS? A lot of your customers are now shifting to solar PV.
Right,
how is that affecting you? Can you answer that in a very short
All right, so it does have an impact, right? But I think the greatest impact for the larger scale systems is intermittency. So as Garfield and Dr. Potopsingh pointed out, renewables and the nature of how renewables are, you have to think about it from the perspective that, as Garfield said, if you got to turn on your AC or turn on your light, you expect that it comes on. Now, if there's cloud cover for a solar farm, it can go from 20 megawatts to 0 in seconds. Same thing with wind. You can have wind forces and then it just dies. So what you find is that from a JPS perspective, it does have an impact. But how the company mitigated that, I don't remember the exact year to be honest, but we did install a battery system to the tune of 5 megawatts. So what the system controls team does is pretty much, well, the system controls team, these are the persons who monitor the grid, right? So they pretty much look at the different, the demand at the time of the day, or for whatever reason for unit goes offline, and they're able to now make the changes from a system perspective in real time so that your bulb don't go out when you flip that switch, or your AC doesn't go off when you flip that switch, right?
All right,
So you
thank
created
you.
a buffer.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So I'll take one question from the audience. I see a hand raised. Could you introduce yourself and ask your question? We're not hearing. Is there a roving microphone?
Yes, my name is Mark Ruth. Thank you very much for the presentation. I noticed with your president efficiency and affordability as part of your core, but it's okay. Here's a question I want to ask. With the advancement in technology and the reduction in your operational costs because of technology and your LNG and the renewable energies, when will the customers see a reduction in energy costs? Because the purpose of engineering is to help our business to be more competitive. And we know from the grad school, one of the challenges we have is the cost of energy. And with all that has happened, when will we see a reduction to customers in the cost of energy?
All right, so let's look at it objectively. One of the primary driver in terms of anybody's electricity bill and the cost is really the fuel, right? So Jamaica doesn't have a readily available fuel source like Guyana, right? So pretty much what we have to do is to purchase fuel. So fuel, in most cases, account for anywhere between 30 to just under 50% of your energy bill in a number of cases, right? So until as a country we're able to manage that input, and we spoke about more renewables on the grid, I do believe that once we're able to manage our fuel input, get more renewables on the grid, we'll definitely see a reduction. But also another factor to the cost or the high cost of electricity is theft. And that in itself is another big challenge that the company faces. So these two factors, right, really play a critical role. So once we're able to get that under our belt, get it under control, I do believe that we'll see even greater reductions with all the technology. It's happening. It's in the process of happening now. It is happening. It is happening.
But if I may, Doctor, may I ask a question to everybody? What if we were not on these kind of fuels that we're on today? So if LNG was not a part of the mix, what do you think your light bills would be?
To be double. Almost double.
All right. So we have one final question. I know Dr. Smith-Johnson is going to kill me, but we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up. Last one.
No, just a quick question. Having New Fortress and JPS on the table, right, you have a dilemma. even though you're supposed to be partnering and bringing low-cost fuel, every time you take somebody off the grid, the cost to JPS goes up because the remaining customers have to pay for that infrastructure. So how do you deal with that dilemma? How are you going to bring down the cost so people stop coming off the grid and raising the cost to the remaining customers?
I'll ask Mr. Dias to take it.
All right, so I can say off the bat, and I'd hinted it before, that JPS is actively right now pursuing their customers to keep them on the grid. But I think the greatest challenge in the question that you ask is that if you think about our customer base of just over 680,000 customers, right? It's pretty much just about 10,000 of that utilizes about almost 50% of the generation. So at the end of the day, any change on the commercial side, right, going forward, whether through New Fortress or any other company, it will have an impact on the residential side primarily. So that in itself, even in terms of Dr. Brumfield's question, the more large customers that come off the grid, it somewhat cancels out the effect of those savings. So if you think about it objectively, even though things are happening on the technological space, you may not necessarily see that impact on your bill right now because there are other competing factors that does affect what you pay at the end of the day.
All right, thank you all very much. I must turn back over to Dr. Smith-Johnson. We could keep going, couldn't we?
Thank you.
All right.
Dr. Therese, we have a token there. We are the poor cousins. So Errol and Garfield, now that you have come to your kingdom, remember us at CMU. I want to, can we give a round of applause to this panel again? I want to thank Dr. Therese for taking us ably through the discussion. Thank you, Dr. Potopsingh, for telling us who you truly are. So I know you have conversations with Dr. Deans all the time about sustainability.
Yes.
And I want to, ladies and gentlemen, this morning we said that the Spartans are everywhere. Mr. Garfield Irvin is a graduate of the Marine Engineering program at the Caribbean Maritime University. And Mr. Errol Dias was, I say this without fear or favor, one of the best student union presidents that passed through Caribbean Maritime Institute and a graduate of the Bachelor of Engineering program in Industrial Systems Op and Maintenance. So go Spartans.
Go Spartans.
Thank you. And I will ask, as I asked Dr. Therese to take her panel off the stage, and well, we are going to hand out our little tokens. I'm going to invite these strange ladies in blue to come through on the other side of the stage because we are going to transition to our pre-lunch activity and get us to lunch so we can come back for another powerful panel right after lunch. Dr. Therese, thank you so much, and the team.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we Thank you to our wonderful production company who gives us good house music. And if it has taken it down. There is an organization in the Caribbean, ladies and gentlemen, known as the Women in Maritime Association of the Caribbean. And I want to give you a few words on that. You see, shipping is a historically male-dominated industry. How many female pirates do you know of? I see Mr. Sims leafing through his data, and probably just one. The pirates tend to be, from Jack Sparrow and all of them, the pirates of the Caribbean tend to be male. And I'll take that back shortly. But ladies and gentlemen, we know that it's a predominantly male-dominated industry, and so the International Maritime Organization has been making a concerted effort in the industry to support women and their professional growth in the shipping industry. And so the International Maritime Organization organizes through its Women in Maritime program under the slogan, Training, Visibility, and Recognition, a program called the Women in Maritime Association. There are 8 WiMAs across the globe, and the first was established in Africa, and there are at least 2 in Africa, one in Anglophone Africa, one in Francophone Africa. There is a Women in Maritime Association in the Pacific region, and there is one in the Arab region. And Women in Maritime Association gives us the WiMA, and then the region puts on its identifying data. So the one in the Pacific region is PAC WiMA, and the Arabs call themselves a WiMA, and it always sounds to me like a WiMA, you know, that kind of thing. In 2015, you know, good things come in very small packages. 2 graduates of the World's Maritime University, 2 of the many in Jamaica, and I see others in this room, like Mrs. Atricia Nunez MacDonald. But this graduate, Mrs. Claudia Grant, the Deputy Director General of the Maritime Authority of Jamaica, and her colleague, the then Deputy Executive Director of Caribbean Maritime Institute at the time, Mrs. Vivette Grant. And Mrs. Grant could tell it better, but she doesn't want to speak. They did a paper for a research seminar of sorts at the World Maritime University, and they did a tracer study on the female graduates of World Maritime University in the Caribbean. And they found that the women were all over the region, in the 17 or so states, or 14, Mrs. Grant, and they found that they were holding all sorts of interesting positions. But they felt in their recommendations of that paper that if the region had a Women in Maritime Association, like other developing regions, then women in the Caribbean region would move farther in their careers, wherever they are across the shipping sector. And guess what? Like one Jamaican philosopher says, his name, the philosopher, is Miguel Collins. You probably know him better as Sizzler, Kalonji. The IMO rose to the occasion, and they accommodated and facilitated in every way the launch of a Women in Maritime Association in the Caribbean region. And that happened in 2015 in Montego Bay, Jamaica. And guess what? The pioneering president of the association was the one who framed the recommendation, Claudia Grant. Ladies and gentlemen, as today, WiMAC is still alive and well. And we have a governing council with President Tamara Lowe from Dominica, who serves in Antigua. We have immediate past president, Ms. Dwinette Eversley, on that governing council, Ms. Kemi Linton, VP of membership, and we have as vice president of public relations and marketing, Mrs. Tricia King from St. Kitts and Nevis. We have Vice President of Research and Development, Ms. Suzette Balcaran of Trinidad and Tobago. And guess what? The Vice President of Women and Development is Yvette Smith-Johnson. Ms. Elisa Leila of Suriname is the VP of Accounts, and our member at large is Mrs. Jennifer Nugent-Hill. Our operations manager is from Jamaica. She's Miss Valerie Simpson, and Miss Raquel Forbes is our Corporate Legal Affairs Director. One of the things that we had in our strategic plan as the current governing council is to seed the chapter, the organization by student chapters in all the maritime education and training institutions across the Caribbean. And guess what? Through the support of the leadership of Caribbean Maritime University, we are the first to launch a student chapter. We're coming to you, Guyana, and we're coming to you, Bahamas, because in 5 years, every METI must have a student chapter. I'm going to invite, we have 2 staff advisors in the Caribbean Maritime University, Ms. Renee Suka. Renee's here. Yes, Renee, please come forward. And Mrs. Myrna Ellis Medina. And I'm going to call the names of these 10 ladies in their shirts because this is the seed, our pioneering student chapter coming out of the Caribbean and Caribbean Maritime University. I was going to ask the ladies led by Mrs. Claudia Grant, who is here to give greetings, to do something special. But before the ladies do that, we have a message from the president of WiMAC, a short message that will come on video just about now.
A hearty good morning to everyone present here today. My name is Tamara Lowe James, and I am the president of WiMAC, which is Women in Maritime Association Caribbean. Today marks a momentous occasion as we gather here to celebrate the launch of WiMAC's new student chapter at the Caribbean Maritime University, and to also celebrate World Maritime Day 2023, which is celebrated under the theme MARPOL at 50, Our Commitment Goes On. As the president of WiMAC, I stand before you with immense pride and excitement for what lies ahead for all of us in the maritime industry. WiMAC has been a beacon of hope and empowerment for Caribbean women in the maritime sector, providing a platform to connect, inspire, and support one another. Through our collective efforts, we have already made significant progress in promoting gender equality in the maritime industry, but our work is far from done. WiMAC acknowledges that maritime education and training institutions like the Caribbean Maritime University are the incubators of maritime professionals, hence the importance of the student chapter, which will serve as a platform for coaching and mentoring of women in maritime while they are in training. This student chapter launch today is a testament to the collective determination and belief in the importance of promoting gender diversity and inclusivity in this traditionally male-dominated field. I would like to thank the Caribbean Maritime University and Dr. Yvette Johnson, WiMAC's VP for Women and Development, for believing in WiMAC and the work that we are doing. Students, as you embark on this new chapter, it is crucial to understand the significance of your role as trailblazers and future leaders in the maritime industry. Your presence here today is a testament to your dedication and commitment to breaking down barriers and challenging stereotypes. As a student chapter, you have the unique opportunity to shape the future of the maritime industry by actively advocating for gender inclusivity and fostering a supportive environment for women, both within the Caribbean Maritime University and the wider maritime industry. We must encourage more women to pursue careers in shipping logistics, maritime engineering, seafaring, maritime education, and other maritime fields. By doing so, we broaden perspectives, harness diverse talents, and enhance the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the maritime industry as a whole. I commend your commitment and dedication in taking the reins on this incredible initiative. As we celebrate the launch of this student chapter, let us remember that the efforts we put into advocating for gender equality today will shape the maritime industry for generations to come. Let us stand together, work collaboratively, and never lose sight of our goal to empower women in maritime. Also, in recognition of World Maritime Day, I urge each and every one of you to pledge your commitment to the protection and preservation of our oceans. Our commitment to protecting our ocean knows no borders. It is a shared responsibility that transcends political, economic, and geographical barriers. By promoting sustainability, we preserve the future of our planet for generations to come. Let us look to the next 50 years with determination, resolve, and innovation. Let us champion our oceans, recognizing the immense value they hold. In conclusion, congratulations, and may this new chapter bring you closer to a maritime industry that thrives on diversity, inclusivity, and equal opportunities for all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you first a lady who doesn't know this, because I don't think I've said this publicly, but I look to as a mentor in this industry, Mrs. Claudia Grant. I'm going to ask her to step forward with my colleagues, Mrs. Ellis Medina and Miss Suka, and we are going to present to you the student chapter and pin each symbolically as ambassadors for the Caribbean Maritime University. Want to say anything, Mrs. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Faculty of Marine and Nautical Studies, the president of the pioneering student chapter of the Caribbean Maritime University will just indicate by raising her hand, Officer Cadet Nashona Strawn. And we can pin the other executive members from the Faculty of Shipping Logistics pursuing a bachelor degree in shipping and logistics, the Vice President, Ms. Davia Findlotter. From the Faculty of Shipping Logistics, a different kind of seafarer, one who is pursuing a bachelor degree in cruise shipping and tourism management, the treasurer for the organization, Ms. Shantae Stevenson. Also from the Faculty of Shipping Logistics, it's almost representative in ratio to how we are at CMU with numbers. Another student pursuing a Bachelor of Science degree in cruise shipping and marine tourism management, Ms. Anicia Bennett, our secretary. On our 4 executive members, again, President, Ms. Nashona Strawn, Vice President, Ms. Davia Findlotter, Treasurer, Ms. Shantae Stevenson, Secretary, Ms. Anicia Bennett. Other members of the chapter from the Faculty of Marine and Nautical Studies, Ms. Asha Gay Bennett, Ms. Danae Treasure, so I hope you hear the applause on this side of the room. So when we get back to logistics, all right. Miss Abigail Griffiths. And we found a very curious thing amongst the ladies, that at least 3 of them are graduates of the Hampton School. Other members from the Faculty of Shipping and Logistics, Ms. Crystal Walters. Miss Adajele McLean, and Miss Alia Naocha. If it's not so, she has to forgive me. How do you say it? All right. Yes. And ladies and gentlemen, while we're presenting, I know that there are several members of the Women in Maritime Association of the Caribbean watching on our YouTube link. And I welcome you as you witness what we are doing here, knowing that we have started something that will outgrow us, because, you know, the sum of a thing is always bigger than its constituent parts. We're going to have a photo up, and President Spencer will give his greetings. I think I had greetings too many times this morning. He will commend the team, but at this juncture, we are going to hold for some photos, and I would like the three ladies to be in this particular photo so the cameraman can tell us how to. We'll probably have better photos outside and have to arrange for it by our banner. Okay, at this juncture, we're about to break for lunch. I know that President Spencer is around. He will come back. And I'm asked to advise you that lunch is at the same place as the coffee break. This I must advise you too. The paparazzi is taking picture to the smile and nod. This I must advise you too, that we ask that you be a little bit more prompt with lunch, because we do have an afternoon activity that we need to take. And so soon as we're done here, we will be off for lunch. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sitting through all of our activities for the first part of day one of conference, Industry Conference 2023. I invite you to give us a round of applause, give yourselves. And I'm sure you'll agree that it has been good so far. We have a poster presentation that we invite you to view while you do other things. And I want to say a special thank you to our production team for taking us smoothly through. Ladies, thank you. And we are at lunch at this moment. Please stay in place for 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. Please don't move anybody. The president is coming back just to close this section. Thank you so much for being so kind. And while we wait on President Spencer, and thank you for just being gracious with this request. I want to tell you that the vision of the Women in Maritime Association of the Caribbean is to empower women to become beacons of sustainable development for the maritime industry. And our mission is to transform the maritime industry through the development and participation of women within the sector in this region. Our goal is to create an enabling environment where this can be done. And so this student chapter, we call it a chapter, it's not a club, it's more of a society, because the activities that surround the chapter will seek to train the maritime conscience and consciousness of the space that we occupy. And so you can look forward to us to do projects that are centered on the ocean. And one of the things that the chapter must do is to incubate a maritime club in one of our schools, either a secondary school or a primary school that is within the vicinity of the university. And so we're looking forward to training up the maritime conscience from there in grade 4, 5, 6, till they go over into high school. And I invite members of faculty who are inclined to the Women in Maritime Association and its activities, especially those who are corporate members or members under the corporate membership, to join with the chapter from time to time in its activities. I ask you to wait still. I'm waiting for the signal that the president. Ooh, I feel like this is when he said, beam me up, Scotty.
Thank you, Chair. This is a very unfortunate position to find myself because I don't know what happened in my absence while I was on the air. So I can't comment on that. But what I can say is this is a very important day for the Caribbean. It's a powerful day because I have grown up around powerful women all my life. I had a powerful woman in my home growing up. I have a powerful woman in my home now. I work with only powerful women, my registrar and others, Deputy Registrar, Dr. Smith Johnson and others. And interestingly, a lot of my own research, and many of you don't know this about me because it's not in the profile and I should put it in there. A lot of my early research, my master's thesis was on gender equity in hospitality. So I've always had an affinity, and they say the best voice for equity in gender is the voice of the dominant gender. Yes, it makes the point. It doesn't sound like complaining, right? And so today I really want to congratulate Dr. Smith Johnson and all of the individuals who are involved in making this happen. Give them a round of applause. And I'm looking forward to your WiMAC conference next week. Major, major, major congrats, and I encourage everyone to get involved because we understand the power of a woman in charge. Thank you. And I want to use this opportunity. I just looked to the left and saw that my colleague president is here. The president of the UCC, the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, Professor Haldane Davis, is here. Let's give him a round of applause, make him welcome. And I know he too, he made a massive statement about gender in the media recently, so I know he appreciates what we're doing. Oh, Mr. Telemac, I was going to say you're snuck in like a thief in the night, but there's no, I would never put you and thief in a sentence. We're happy to have you, sir. Welcome, CEO of the Antigua and Barbuda Port Authority, and he always is a friend and partner of the Caribbean Maritime University. So I understand we move the photo up now.
We will do one again for you, Prof.
All right. Oh, it's been done.
So we will do the ladies, Prof, and the advisors by the photo sinting over there, so. Step and repeat banner. Ladies and gentlemen, you're at lunch and we have an hour for lunch. Have a good bon appetit. Better said that way.